Okay, time for a new video. And yes, I'm speaking English now because all of you just watch 1 minute of my videos and then quit. Anyways, today we're talking about Nosferatu, which is basically if Dracula didn't have hair. So let's begin. The movie begins with some text that I don't know how to read because of the font. And then we see a man called Thomas Hutter who's getting some flowers for his wife, Ellen Hutter, and love is hilarious, you can see because he's laughing. But Ellen don't like them flowers. How dare you kill them flowers? Thomas meets a man on the streets that says no one can outrun their fate. And Thomas thinks that's the funniest thing he's ever heard. And then we see a man called Nock that sells houses, and then he wants to sell a house to Count Orlok. So then he sends Thomas off to visit Count Orlok to sell him the house. And then he tells him to sell him that nice, very beautiful home. So then, off with you to the land of phantoms. Yeah, that's funny. Okay, yeah, we get it. It's okay. Okay, calm down. And then he tells Ellen he has to leave, and then he leaves. He arrives at a restaurant where he says Count Orlok one time, and then everybody freaks out. He gets taken to his room where he reads his vampire book one time, and then feels very sleepy. When he wakes up again, he reads his book. Vampires? Nah, that's bullshit! And then he takes some horses over to Count Orlok's castle, but then they stop. So Thomas has got to go there himself. Lucky for him, Nosferatu, a normal driver, is there to help him. And he drives really fast. And then we're at the castle. Wait a minute, maybe it is Nosferatu.
I think he knows. Away!
Thomas enters the castle through some automatic doors in 1922. And then we see Count Orlok, who invites him for dinner. And Orlok eyes down the paper like the one chef in Ratatouille. And Thomas cuts his bread the absolute right way, definitely. And then he cuts himself. On the finger. And then Orlok wants some of that juice. But Thomas is like, what are you doing? And then he just sleeps. Then he checks himself in the mirror and sees that he's been bitten. Funny, hilarious. And then he writes a letter to Ellen and says that he's been bitten by mosquitoes. Yeah, sure. They start talking about selling the house when Orlok gets distracted by his wife, or her neck. And then we get the most iconic scene of the film when Orlok comes into his room. And then...
Nosferatu!
And then Ellen wakes up and starts walking on the balcony, acting like if Spider-Man is gonna save her or something. We also see Nosferatu getting arrested. He's putting his hands up. But Ellen saves Thomas by just saying his name. Like, it's that easy. The next day, Thomas goes into Orlok's bedroom. And then he finds Orlok sleeping in his coffin, looking like he's just shit himself. And then Thomas sees him speedrunning, stacking coffins. And then Thomas makes a rope out of his bedsheet and escapes like he's been grounded. But the fall knocks him out. And then we cut to a prison where Nock is at. Maybe he's calmed down a bit. Oh, no, he's still laughing. Oh, and he's eating flies. Great. And Jesus Christ, that security guards need some sleep. And then Nock just attacks. And then we cut to Ellen, who's just sitting at a beach. Nothing else. We cut to a ship that's holding the coffins of Count Orlok, and he's in one of them. Back with Nock, he grabs a paper from a guard's pocket, and then he sees that there's a plague going on in the city. We come back to the ship where we see that everybody there starts getting an illness which kills them. A man finds out in an unfortunate way. Because Orlok just lifts himself up, I don't know how, but he does it. And then this man has the usual reaction to seeing bald people as he jumps off the ship. So then this is Orlok's ship. So then Nox knows that Orlok is coming to town. So then he kills the security guard. And then Orlok just starts wandering around town looking for his new home. And Thomas finally reunites with Ellen. And then Orlok finds it. Beautiful. It's beautiful, right? Oh, it's gone. Some people find the boat and they find all the dead people in it, and then they find out that it's a plague. So then they announce it to the entire town. And then people think that Nock started the plague, so they start to chase him. You know what music would be perfect for this? And then he gets up on the roof and they start throwing things at him, just to give him extra brain damage. And then he gets down. And then he hides behind a tree and they run past him. And then Ellen wakes up in the middle of the night and sees her weird neighbor, and then she invites him. Oh, how sweet. And then a shadow walks up the stairs and do some very inappropriate things. But then it's morning and he's still up, so that means he's past his bedtime. So then it just fades away. And then Ellen dies, and that's the end. Bye.